Hey Marine friends, this story is for you. In the early 2000s, I went to MEPS to start my military journey. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's the Military Entrance Processing Station, where you go before heading off for basic training, boot camp, whatever your branch wants to call it. For those of us that went through it, no one, at least the males, could ever forget that awkwardness where you're surrounded by a room full of other dudes in just your underwear doing things like duck walks. You'd think that people would at least show up clean, but that room was foul. That room smelled like Cheetos. My doctor was a burned out middle-aged Filipino man who clearly had the joy of life sucked out of him one starfish inspection at a time. The nurse looked like Dog the Bounty Hunter, complete with the dangly earring before they were cool again. That wasn't even the funny part. There's that downtime where you would commingle right before you get sorted into the hotel, where you'd wait before flying to where you needed to go. People split into groups, either by branch, or by future MOS, or whatever. I spied an open seat at a table next to the bathroom and exit. Perfect. I figured that when I got called, I could just head out as fast as possible instead of walking up from the back. I sat next to a Mexican kid who'd moved in from Laredo, Texas, going into the Navy. He had the stereotypical belt buckle that was so huge, you know that he put it on just to highlight he was from Texas. At the table was a black dude with glasses also going into the Navy as a nuke. The other guy I was sitting in front of was this white guy going into the Marines. It was like a Hands Across America HR representation of military diversity. We had a pretty normal conversation, and of course I was asked if I watched anime. Now it's the early 2000s. I'm Filipino, of course I watched anime. It's just all part of the art of storytelling for me. Texas denied it but knew enough about Dragon Ball Z, and Mr. Future Marine and Nuke got into a whole discussion with me about Hellsing and Trigun. I said those were pretty good, but they needed to check out Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. We got to talking about what we'd do when we got back to our families to visit, and Mr. Marine erased my memory of what everyone else had said. He'd stated that he was a huge fan of Hellsing, an anime about Dracula in modern London destroying demons at the request of the Queen. That also means there's a high chance of English everywhere. Much credit to the website back in the day for giving the world the word English. I don't know how we got to this next point, but this one sentence still makes my balls retract to my kidneys to this day, like 20 years later. It got super serious, and he looked over the top of his glasses and said,
I want to use that trench coat they issue us so that I can go home and be like, I'm Private So-and-so, USM She.
She being the English letter C as well as the Japanese word for death. I'm an expressive guy, but honestly I don't know what my face looked like, but the Navy guys just looking down at the middle of the table were a good indicator of what we were thinking. Either we laugh at this dork, despite being anime dorks as well, or we high-five this dude for just owning his own weirdness. I don't really remember much after that, except that now I've fast-forwarded to the Holiday Inn and I'm laughing at dudes having a push-up competition in the hallway, as if they're not going to get smoked enough within the next 5 days. Storytelling and our memories are key to building a culture and passing on a lesson. I mean, that's all culture is, a collection of art, stories, and lessons that guide our behaviors, customs, and beliefs. At the very beginning of America's longest war, you have to remember that you had young men and women who still thought like kids, manning the guns, and I'd say we were successful at what we did. There wasn't social media so that the rest of the world couldn't see the type of weird that went on, but it was just as weird back in the day. If my generation and the one before mine were honest about our experiences, everyone would resonate with the saying, "Thank God social media wasn't a thing when I was in." I'm a little under the weather due to being negligent with my sleep and my increasing demands from my day job, so I'll get to the meat of my thoughts. Go out and build your own interesting lives. Live as an example but create stories. Funny ones, happy ones, and know that everyone will also have their own sad ones. The things that bind us together in the real world are stronger than the internet life where everyone can put out their worst takes with no regard for tact, discussion, or being civil. Your actions in the real world will impact your life so much more than being mad on the internet all day. Have a story to tell 20 years from now. Have many of them. Be good, stay safe, and have a good one.